Aura moves back home to be reunited with her family. It's life after college graduation, and her sister, Nadine, teases her about her presence in a home that's outgrown her. Aura defends she's just returned back from Ohio. The guy she thought she was going to marry has moved to Colorado. Nadine rolls her eyes at the statement while playing muse for their mother, who's a photographer. Both mother and younger sister believe Aura is exaggerating about her first romance. They write it off as a fling with their mother, encouraging that flings are all part of experiencing youth. Aura tries to come to terms with her family basics, saying she wasted 2 years of her life in a fruitless romance. The bickering between sisters continues in the room they share. Nadine complains about the lights, wanting Aura to switch from the overhead lights to reading lamps. Aura states she can't do that because the lamp's bulb is blown and she doesn't know where the replacement is. Nadine calls her lazy and insists she gets a replacement. Aura goes checking for the light bulb, asking her mom, who's on a call, where it's stashed. Her mom dismissively tells her it's in the white cabinet close to her. Aura starts skimming through the various compartments until she finds a journal that catches her interest. She flips through and ends up wrapped up in it on the bathroom floor. Her whispers depict she's reading an entry from June 28, 1974. The writer has a strong zeal to be an artist and wants to set up a studio in pursuit of her ambition. Aura's mom comes early to wake her up, remarking that since she's home with them, then it's only courtesy she works with their schedule. Aura grumpily chases her out and returns to the cacophony of her duvet. She finally gets up and meets her family at the workstation in their home. Her mom and sister are busy on their systems, with the mom questioning Aura's plans for the day. Aura replies she plans to attend a party that night and would need some money. Her mother directs her to the white cabinet to get her purse. Aura is in bed, having a conversation with her friend, Frankie, who's still on campus in the library she and Aura spent most of their time. Aura remarks she misses there, but Frankie recounts Aura was quite miserable. Aura spills about her mother's journals she's been reading without her consent, informing Frankie about her mother's past with a hippie boyfriend called Eric. Her mother expressed she loved Eric and would hate to see him leave her life even though he had to. Frankie understands Aura is trying to relate her romance to her mother's past, but Frankie opines Aura's boyfriend, Owen, wasn't that good of a match. Aura maintains she misses him. As for Frankie, Aura misses her too, and Frankie promises to come see her soon. Aura gets together with a friend, Ashlyn. They talk more in Ashlyn's room as Ashlyn wants to hook Aura up with a guy named Jed, who's a little bit famous with his YouTube videos. Ashlyn thinks Jed and Aura will get along quite well. She asks Aura if she's still sad about Owen, and Aura admits that she is. She starts to go into the details about how she really wanted her and Owen to work out, but Ashlyn isn't listening. She climbs out the window, and Aura follows to greet Jed on the fire escape. Aura and Jed get acquainted with conversation, revealing he lives in Chicago, but has come over to handle a top-secret business for the government. Their interaction is interrupted by Charlotte, whose friendship with Aura goes way back. Their mothers used to be close friends, so it was only inevitable that they became friends too. Charlotte hates to interrupt, but wants to have a private chat with Aura. Aura climbs back into the building and Ashlyn apologizes for inviting Charlotte and her weird personality, but Aura replies that it's fine. She chooses to follow Charlotte and find out what their urgent chat is about. Only fair as she's been avoiding Charlotte for 5 years now. On Ashlyn's request, Aura goes to say goodbye to Jed, mentioning she needs to catch up with Charlotte. He states he'll be in New York for another 2 weeks, and Aura proposes that they hang out. He agrees to give her his phone number. Charlotte takes Aura to her apartment, which she lives in alone. She settles on the couch with pot in hand, asking about Siri and Nadine. Aura answers they're both fine, and Charlotte remarks Aura is lucky to have family unlike her. Aura settles in the chair opposite Charlotte when Charlotte admits she went to rehab in 2007 for an unrelated incident to pot. Aura asks Charlotte if she drinks, and Charlotte tags herself, somewhat lukewarm on the subject. She would prefer their conversation revolves around something other than their issues. They were friends once, and they can rebuild the friendship. Charlotte hands over the smoking pipe to Aura, who stated earlier she was open to smoking pot. Charlotte asks Aura to open up about herself, so Aura tells her about her course study in college as a film theorist, which wasn't that fun. Charlotte and Aura watch videos of a plus-size woman who doesn't know she's getting filmed while she takes off her clothes. Charlotte finds the video and body comments entertaining, but Aura begs to differ. Charlotte doesn't think she should take things like that seriously, but Aura can't help it. They talk about financial freedom, and Aura possibly getting a job because Siri would expect her to. Aura has no idea what job she'd fit into, and Charlotte suggests an old place she used to work in as a hostess. Aura isn't so sure as she has 0 qualifications. But Charlotte maintains the job is easy and not requiring much. Aura mentions she'll check out the place, but can't sleep over like Charlotte wants her to. Her excuse is that her place is close by, and Charlotte whines about her leaving. Back at home, Nadine nags about some stuff Aura needs to do to make the bathroom more conducive for the both of them to have and share. She would also prefer if Aura took care of the kitty litter. Aura goes over to Charlotte's recommended workplace to apply for a job. She gets the position as a day hostess with a job promising to be almost uneventful with minimum pay. Her interviewer tells her she can be fixed to start work the coming Friday and leaves to get the paperwork ready. Aura introduces herself as the new day hostess to a dismissive man that happens to be the restaurant's chef. Aura, on her way home, runs into Charlotte. She mentions she got the job and thanks Charlotte for helping her out. She also remarks that the chef guy is attractive, and she might have embarrassed herself talking to him. Charlotte assures he's all right, just a little apprehensive. She proposes they hang out, but Aura declines, wanting to go home instead. Charlotte thinks it's because of money and informs Aura she has her dad's credit card that they could use to splurge. Aura still declines, accepting she hasn't changed much since Charlotte knew her in school. Always eager to head home, she hugs Charlotte and promises they'll see each other soon. Aura goes home and tells her family she has a new job. Siri brings up Nadine's success, winning a high school award for poetry. Siri proudly calls it a prestigious award, but Nadine tries to downplay it. Aura wasn't even aware Nadine wrote poetry. Nadine reads her poem to Aura while she's taking a shower. Aura likes the poem and comments Nadine is good with a lot of stuff and has her life on a promising trajectory. Aura goes through Siri's cabinet trying to pick a shoe for her date with Jed that evening. She tells Siri she doesn't know how she feels about Jed yet, but the night will decide. They'll be going out to see a French movie. Aura wants Siri's opinion on Jed's YouTube videos because she wants to know if Siri will find him funny. She browses his channel on Siri's laptop. They both watch Jed on a toy horse addressing government issues, and Siri opines his content are witty and goofy. Aura is home alone when Noel stops by with her son. She asks of Nadine, who normally babysits, but Nadine isn't available, so Aura offers to watch the little boy instead. The mother hands him over, and Aura tries to make conversation with him that he isn't much interested in. Jed meets up with Aura on a sidewalk and apologizes for being late. He elucidates that he's squatting at a friend's and has no money on him because he's broke. Aura understands the movie date won't work out then, and they settle on tea back at her house because her mom and sister aren't around. They get back to Aura's place, and the first space in it is Siri's studio. Jed comments it's nice and big, and Aura explains how her mom is an artist that deals mostly on photographs. Jed admires some of Siri's framed art and asks if she's successful. Aura affirms Siri is and informs that the entire ground floor is dedicated to her mom's studio, while upstairs is their living quarters. She shows Jed her hamster, whom she thinks it's sleeping, but Jed confirms the animal has passed on. Aura decides to store the deceased animal in the fridge. Jed comments she lives in a big and luxurious house, and Aura lets on she's a postgraduate who schooled in Ohio. She's looking to move out of her mom's house soon enough, but needs a job and money to do so. She got one as an air hostess at a joint that's closed during the day. Aura's job is to answer calls and take reservations, offering caretaking services on the side. Aura asks Jed what kind of tea he'd like, then asks what sort of business has brought him to New York. He answers he's developing television shows and has actually met with HBO and Comedy Central the previous week. He admits the place he's cooped up in is horrible, a studio space in Bushwick. Aura offers to let Jed crash at the house since her mom and sister are off visiting colleges for the entire week. Jed is open to the offer. While Aura has a shower, Jed settles in her mom's room, reading one of her books. She informs him she'll need to be up by 8 the following morning for work, and Jed states he doesn't have much doing, so he'll be in. She tells him good night and turns to her room for the night. By morning, Aura is dressed up for her first day of work. She checks on Jed, who's still fast asleep by the time she leaves. The chef and Aura talk a little when he shows up for work. The other employee, Saeed, is sound asleep on the floor in the corner and doesn't even stir when his name is called. Charlotte is hanging out at Aura's place, and she draws a new tattoo on Aura's lower back. Charlotte wants to know what university was like for Aura, so she elucidates that in some ways it wasn't what she expected. She talks about Frankie, who Charlotte is going to meet soon. Frankie is currently rounding up some research, but she'll be moving to New York after, and they'll get an apartment together. The doorbell rings to Charlotte's surprise, as she wasn't expecting Aura was inviting anyone else. Charlotte gets to meet Jed, who she expresses she doesn't like. Aura tries to reprimand her for her direct tone, but he waves it off as freedom of speech. He mentions he's hungry, but can't get any food on his own because he's broke. This irritates Charlotte, especially when Aura continues to play the generous host, inviting him to have whatever he wants from the kitchen. Charlotte asks for some wine and Aura goes looking for it. She's hesitant to take out of her mom's collection in the cabinet. But Charlotte insists Siri has so many that she won't notice or miss a bottle. Charlotte has to go eventually and offers that Aura come stay with her if she's feeling lonely or bored. Aura appreciates the offer, but voices how Jed is around, and that's okay. Jed has now switched to sleeping in Nadine's room because Siri's room is too cold. Aura books a reservation for 3 the following day at work. She lets on to Keith, the chef, that her friend Charlotte has a very generous doctor, and Keith asks if he could be hooked up with some Vicodin. Aura and Keith start getting comfortable with each other at work. The guys downstairs are obnoxious with their porn video, so Keith seeks sanity upstairs. They discuss porn for a bit, with Keith revealing he's into Japanese-themed porn. Aura claims she doesn't watch porn. Siri leaves Aura several unattended voice messages, one of them entailing she and Nadine will be back home by Wednesday. Frankie also leaves a voicemail about apartment scouting, wanting Aura to get back to her as soon as possible. Aura lets Jed know her family will be back soon, but he insinuates he looks forward to very much still living with them. He states he'll be in New York for a week extra or so, and Aura decides she can make that work. Keith has a girlfriend he's having a rough time with, but moving out would be too expensive. Aura invites him to hang out with her and Charlotte, after he shows interest in still getting the pills he requested for. She points out that her house isn't far from the workplace. Keith has a very tight schedule, having put up extra hours to foot the rent he shares with his girl. Aura mentions she's also in a relationship with a homeless guy that's a big deal on YouTube. She states she's trying to keep it casual. Siri returns home and confronts Aura about the missing wine. There are 10 bottles gone and Siri isn't happy about that. What's more is that Siri knows someone's been sleeping in her room. Aura lies, saying she's the one, as her mattress is uncomfortable, but Siri informs her Candace, her worker, has seen a man in the living quarters at odd hours, even when Aura isn't around. Aura gets apprehensive that Candace would snitch, and her mom infers Charlotte is responsible for the missing wine. She thinks Charlotte is a bad influence on Aura, but Aura defends Charlotte is a good kid with good parenting from her dad. She defends that Charlotte is her best friend, but her mom finds that ridiculous, as they've only been in communication for 2 weeks. Aura starts shrieking, having a mental breakdown about how no one cares about her. All her mom cares about is missing wine, and Nadine cares about litter boxes. She offers to replace the missing wine, but her mom scorns that Aura doesn't have any money. For Aura, this proves her point that no one listens to her, as she's mentioned she has a paying job. She laments she's a fresh graduate with a broken heart, and her mother is never around to notice her pain. She would prefer for her family to go easier on her. Nadine hears all the shrieking and steps in. Aura accuses the both of them of being a gang against her. They treat her like an outsider in her own house, and she's fed up. She continues throwing a tantrum, throwing her mom's things off the table and storming off, screaming out her hate for them. Aura is laid flat on the studio floor, playing with tiny furniture and sulking. Her mom brings in more paper furniture she can't work with, wanting to give them to Aura. Aura continues sulking, and her mom assures she's proud of Aura's milestone. She tells Aura that she didn't have a job or a motivation when she was Aura's age. Aura apologizes for her earlier tantrum, and her mom promises she holds no grudges. Feeling much better, Aura climbs into her mom's lap to ask for a favor. She briefly explains Jed's situation, asking permission for him to live with them for a couple nights. Siri rejects the idea, thinking of Nadine, who would be uncomfortable with a strange guy in their house. Aura infers he could sleep in the studio, but Siri maintains it's still a no. Aura continues to plead on Jed's behalf, reasoning he won't be staying over because they're sexually involved. It's a pure humanitarian act her mother shouldn't be finding a big deal. Siri finally agrees, and Aura showers her with kisses. Aura introduces Jed to her mom and sister. He's brought along his bags and thanks them for accommodating him. Aura continues reading her mom's journal, this time out loud to Jed's hearing. Jed is uncomfortable on his mattress, and Aura invites him to share her bed instead since there's no other spare. He turns on his side, giving them space on the now shared mattress, half asleep. Aura turns in late for work and finds Julia answering a call at her station. Aura apologizes for coming in late, and Julia lets her off with a strict warning. She needs to be at work on time because Julia isn't interested in being in two places at the same time. Keith shows up with his brightest mood yet. He holds Aura from behind and tells Aura he gets off early from work that day, and they can hang out at a joint around the corner if she has the pills he wants. He gives her a time and walks off to his station before she can get a proper word of objection in. Charlotte helps Aura look for the perfect outfit she'll wear to go do drugs with Keith. Aura feels she's bothering Charlotte, but Charlotte maintains she doesn't mind, and Aura can take a variety of pills for her date. She admits she's nervous about what will go down, and Charlotte advises her to take the horns and initiate sexual activities when they're done with the pills. Aura mentions she's not one to initiate sexual activities, especially as she's trying to get over her breakup from Owen. Charlotte pitches in with a rendezvous from the past to build Aura's confidence and pulls off her top so Aura can wear it, as it's the only option. She's excited about the date on Aura's behalf because she doesn't like Jed and hopes Keith will be his replacement. Charlotte tells Aura her father has a group show, and one of Aura's work will get featured in it. Their conversation is interrupted by Siri, whom Charlotte excitedly goes to greet. Siri confronts Aura about the consumed food and the hamster she found in the fridge. She sternly voices that Aura can't go around treating her house and food as a charity giveaway. She asks Charlotte if she has the same entitlement problem as Aura, and Charlotte admits hers is worse. Aura waits in a pretty dress and heels for Keith, but he doesn't show up. Aura addresses being stood up by Keith with Jed. She wants to know if she should give Keith a second chance, but Jed is adamant that Aura shouldn't. He references how easy-breezy his relationship is with her and opines that that's how relationships should be. Siri gets fed up with Jed around. She complains to Aura that he's invading personal spaces and needs to be gone by the time she gets home. She points out Aura and Jed aren't even sexually involved, and it's all the more reason why he needs to get lost. She doesn't care if he has nowhere else to go and tells Aura she's late for work again. Aura receives her first paycheck. She gives Keith the cold shoulders, and he excuses he couldn't leave the house because of his girlfriend. He lets on he hates his job, and Aura concurs. She decides she's quitting. Aura has confronted Jed with the fact that he has to leave. She feels bad that he still hasn't sorted out somewhere else better. He remarks Siri isn't as laid back as Aura painted her to be, and would have preferred Aura had a more definite plan before putting him on. She reminds him he's been in her house for a week, but apologizes regardless for the inconvenience of him having to leave on such short notice. She hopes they can still hang out with no bad blood, and Jed states it's fine. Nadine asks Aura's permission to invite a few friends over. She invites dozens of friends and has a house party. Angry, Aura tells her that wasn't the plan. She panics at the idea of a bunch of drunk minors littering the house. Nadine shares that their mom is out late, and it shouldn't be a big deal. Aura can't even get the kids to turn down the music. Aura sought out Charlotte, and she arrives as soon as possible. Charlotte boasts she can handle the situation, but ends up grinding on one of the party attendants. Aura calls her aside, and Charlotte opines that the kids are more out of hand than she expected. Aura complains she's having another breakdown, but manages to put herself together. She goes back out, wearing no pants, and asks to speak to Nadine. Nadine ignores her sister, but Aura insists they talk in the kitchen. Charlotte is present when Nadine lashes out that Aura is embarrassing her by walking around a house full of guests with no pants. She calls her sister desperate for attention, a loser who couldn't get a homeless guy to sleep with her. She's unhappy Aura is her sister in the first place because she thinks Aura is embarrassing. Aura takes to hitting her with a wooden spoon, and Charlotte tries to intervene until Nadine tells her to back off. The confrontation has the party attendees spectating. Nadine storms out, frustrated. Aura is displaced in her own house. Charlotte sleeps over but takes up the whole mattress and won't budge. Aura goes to her mom's room to sleep there, but it's already occupied by a sleeping Nadine who won't share the space. Aura calls Frankie, who will be in New York the next day. Aura tells her she has just quit her job because it was boring and out of her pedigree. Frankie talks about finding cheap rent, and Aura breaks the news that she won't be renting out anymore with Frankie. She excuses she's needed at the house, but Frankie doesn't understand why Aura would wait till the last minute to tell her she's canceling. She's already packed and proposes her dad would foot the bill till Aura can pay back. Aura, while admitting finances are an issue, voices it's not the only reason she's choosing to keep living with her family. Aura makes a video of herself reading stuff from her mom's diary, then notifies her mom that Charlotte put up her video, and she's off to attend the show that will have it exhibited. She doesn't tell Siri the content of the video. Aura gets nervous about her video on display, and Charlotte calms her down. They arrive at the exhibition. Aura's artwork is a video of her in bikini brushing her teeth. Charlotte confides she'd like to have intercourse with a curator who's standing a few steps away, chatting with someone. Frankie pays Aura an unexpected visit at the show. Charlotte's attention drifts somewhere else and Aura and Frankie start to catch up. Frankie proposes they have a proper conversation somewhere more conducive, but Aura doesn't see the big deal. They're conversing just fine where they are. Frankie expresses Aura has been inaccessible for weeks now and is still proving inaccessible, even after she's been considerate with her friend's last-minute decisions. Aura becomes passive-aggressive, and the whole talk gets interrupted by Charlotte announcing that Keith is in the building. Frankie decides to leave, stating they'll catch up when Aura is ready to stop being so closed off. Charlotte calls Frankie a drag. Once she's out of earshot, Aura approaches Keith, and they skip the whole exhibition. It's his day off, and is practically single because he cheated on his girlfriend with her friend. They still share an apartment, though. Aura and Keith end up at a sidewalk, sharing a blunt. Aura remarks she's high and reaches out to arouse Keith. He's initially not game because he's yet to officially call it off with his girlfriend. Aura states she understands and keeps her hands to herself. Moments later, they're grappling at each other with their lips attached before they realize the sidewalk won't do. They find better privacy in an iron pipe and an open garage. It's nighttime, so they manage to make it work. Paying no mind to the thud the pipe makes from Keith's thrusts, Keith casually kisses Aura goodnight and walks off after making them hide behind a packed car from someone he thinks he saw and he's avoiding. Aura gets home to an upset Siri. Siri's mad that she keeps putting off her basic chores and doesn't want to hear any more excuses as to why they keep getting put off. She believes Aura doesn't really like living at home, at least not as much as she claims she does. She has a shower and joins her resting mom in bed, offering to massage her aching back. Siri comments how her daughter has an intuitive touch and should consider being a masseuse if filmmaking doesn't work out. They get discussing about career paths, and Aura admits she wants to be as successful as her mom. Siri tells her she knows she's capable of being even more successful, and Aura gets confident enough to aim higher. Now she wants to be as successful as Nadine, but Siri tells her that would be much harder. Aura lets on that she's read Siri's journal, but Siri doesn't care or remember much of what was written. Aura asks her about Ed from her journal, and she narrates she used to share an apartment with him and his girlfriend with whom he had a toxic relationship with. In the aftermath of one of their fights, Siri and the girlfriend, Sheila, became best friends. There's also someone named Phil in the journal who Siri explains is a guy that had a low libido. Aura feels her mom was romantically involved with a lot of people, but she clarifies she was only trying to figure things out, much like Aura at the moment. Aura admits to having sex with the chef from work in a pipe on the street with no protection. Her mom would prefer she's more careful. Siri offers to let Aura share her bed for the night, and Aura likes the idea. She cuddles her mom, who wants her to move away a ticking clock first.